Be a dreamer. Over the past decade, I have heard many stories of people leaving their country of origin to travel the world and establish themselves in a new country for work, love, or because they weren't welcome at home anymore. If you're here, you would certainly like to hear mine, am I right? Born and raised in the south of Belgium, I spent the first 20 years of my life in a town near Mons. The idea of living in another country would never have crossed my mind, asked my mom. Initially, I wanted to become a doctor, but medicine wasn't the type of studies I was destined for. Instead, I ended up getting a degree in communication and media from a university in Tournai. Yep, that's still in Belgium, where I met the most astonishing man, Quentin. Quentin and I were studying for the same bachelor degree, but we weren't in the same class. So how did we meet? You have to know that my dad used to be a punctuality freak. We would be the first to arrive at birthday parties, weddings, or even on the road to holidays, so we could get away before everyone else got into a traffic jam. If you were unfortunate enough to arrive 1 minute late, you would be greeted by a lovely comment about how you could have been there sooner. How does this connect to Quentin and I meeting? Patience, my friend. With such a dad, you can understand that I knew I couldn't be late for the first course of each day at university. In fact, I was generally the first one to arrive. I jumped in the car at 6:30 a.m. and I was there way before 8 because I wanted to avoid being stuck in the morning traffic and to find a good parking spot. That's where Quentin comes into it. This tall, brown-haired guy was the only one who beat me to the door each day because he was taking the train. Cheater. We gradually got to know each other a little bit more every morning. For a while, it didn't occur to me to ask him where he was traveling from, because I assumed he was from Mons. But then I discovered he lived in the same town as me. I offered him a lift, and by the end of the school year, we started dating. After graduating in 2011, I applied for a full-time job as a PR officer at a company just 15 minutes from my parents' home. I was surrounded by friends and family I had known forever, going out with Quentin, and was clearly inside my comfort zone. However, my job was far from fulfilling. For more than 2 years, most of my time was spent alone in a cold, tedious, white-walled office. I wanted a change. While I dipped into the freelancing world as a copywriter on the side, I kept looking for another main job. I was restless, but I soon realized I didn't have enough experience. You know, those 3 annoying years of experience every company always expects for an entry-level position. And of course, internships or student jobs didn't count. It felt as if the world wanted me to have had a pre-career before the real one. At that point in my life, I couldn't see myself progressing. I was stuck and unhappy in the job I had, not only the type of role, but also in the environment in which I was doing it. I applied to as many openings as I could, and still nothing. My confidence was declining. It seemed like there was just no job for me in the area. You had to travel to Brussels if you wanted any good opportunities. But I wasn't ready to commute that far, especially when I knew my family needed me after my dad had passed away in early 2012. But the feeling of having too much to do and not being supported by my colleagues kept growing. I felt completely burned out, and by 2014, I quit my job. Quentin had his own issues to deal with, and we weren't yet living together, though we were able to see each other whenever we wanted. One evening in mid-2014, we were in his childhood bedroom watching a movie which we had seen on our very first date, Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time. I was falling asleep when I felt his gaze upon me. "Will you come to London with me?" he whispered. "Sure," I said. "We could spend a weekend shopping." "Not a weekend. I mean living there. We could get better work experience, better lives, better everything." My brain started to wrestle with what Quentin was trying to tell me. I had my heart in my mouth as I murmured, "But I don't speak English." I knew my English wasn't good enough to land a job. From a young age, I had always been told, that I wasn't good at languages. So why would that be any different now that I was in my 20s? At the time, I just didn't know what to think. But he asked me again a couple of days later, "Will you come to London with me?" Well, you already know the answer since you are reading this book. We became the Londoners. That nickname came from my grandfather, with whom I started corresponding when we moved to the UK. He would address each of his letters to the Londoners or to the exiled. It made me laugh so hard. My granddad was always a bit dramatic. He had never lived outside of our country, even though he had crossed the linguistic border from the Flemish to the French side of Belgium to find a job when he was younger. The nickname stuck with us. Everyone in our family greeted us with it when we would visit. We had become the ones who had dared to move to London. The idea of becoming an expatriate makes people dream. They dream of the life they could have if they were elsewhere. The country they are living in starts to seem so small and complicated that the grass must be greener somewhere else. I am no different, are you? Now let's talk about the book you're reading. If you're holding it, it may be because you're about to make that big step, or it's just because you're curious to discover what my experience was like. The 4 years I've spent in the UK have been a jolly ride. I'm going to tell you our moving in adventure, which didn't really go as planned, as well as my journey to a fulfilling job and life. I'll also discuss our families and friends' reactions to our departure, how we kept in touch with them throughout the years, and how we made new friends in a seemingly cold city. And I'll explain how my relationship with English evolved in just a few months. Each chapter has a theme and is divided into 2 parts: my experience, both good and bad, as a foreigner in the UK, the advice and tips I wish I had known before making the jump. So get comfy, have a cup of tea, as Britons like, and enjoy your trip.